All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Know Your Numbers podcast with your host, Chris McCormick, and a special guest today in the name of Brian Kevin Lagrange, also known as BK. Brian is a captain in the Air Force out in Virginia. He is also a commercial real estate agent and helping people with their finances in the form of wealth strategy, of life insurance, and being your own bank. So, Brian, welcome to the show. As much as you can, give an introduction to yourself, and we'll get this thing rolling.
Absolutely. I want to thank you first, Chris, for putting me on. We met recently and we got this going on pretty quickly. So I'm excited to be here and get to know you a lot more, a lot better. But a little bit about me, like Chris already said, captain of the United States Air Force, but I'm trying to make this commercial real estate agent thing my new career. I'm also a lending underwriter. So I work for Sabal as an intern, and then also got my life insurance license. So that's how we got talking about infinite banking and the IBC, the infinite banking concepts. Been doing this for, just about a year now. And I'm just thankful to have this opportunity and be in this position.
Amen, brother. Well, I think that's a good place to start. It sounds, so you said you've been in it for a year. I was going to make note of the entrepreneurial drive that you have with real estate, life insurance, and even I think in the military, you got to have a large sense of drive, and oftentimes an entrepreneurial drive, a self-starter. So I'd love to hear about where that came from, how it's benefited you, and whether that's something that's always been with you or just kind of something that came out of you in the recent past.
Yeah. No, I think it stemmed from my parents, raised in a Christian household. And so they always said, hey, take responsibilities and take control of what you can control, and kind of find that delineation of what you can control, what you can't control. And as growing up, when I went off to school in Colorado in a small school called the United States Air Force Academy, as you can tell by the flag in my background here, if you're watching the video, but I started off doing that. And as I went to school, I started realizing, hey, taking that initiative is the most important thing. People always say, hey, can you, how do I say, when you're reaching out for resources, mentors love seeing self-starters. And I think if you put yourself out there in the right place at the right time, you'll be surprised what comes out of it. And so I started back this real estate journey back in 2020, 2021, I'd say, because I started wholesaling commercial real estate. And that is very difficult, but I wanted to put my foot in the door. So I teamed up with a couple folks and we started doing that, closed one deal for self-storage down in Louisiana. And that went pretty well. But, I saw that and I said, man, I really want to do this full time. Got my license and then started talking to folks about wealth building. And that's how I got introduced into the infinite banking concepts. I think if you take the initiative to put yourself out there through social media and reach out to the correct network, you're gonna build yourself up. And that's what everyone's on that journey. I'm on my journey myself, but it's been a wild ride thus far.
Amen. That's so good. And you talk about mentorship and building a positive network and being around the right people. How has that served you, BK? How have you gone about finding the right people? I know there's a lot of great people in the Air Force, but it sounds like you also have reached out to people in the investing world, in the financial world. So a little key on how BK goes about finding the right people to hang around with and who he looks for.
I always say start local or start with your immediate sphere. That's something that my mentors tell me. They go, hey, reach out to who you know already. If you already know them, then it's so easy to build rapport and ask questions, because it's kind of hard to reach out to strangers saying, oh, will you mentor me or coach me? But if you see someone who's pretty active in real estate investing, reach out to them and ask them questions. Say, hey, what materials are you reading and what materials you're looking at? And when they give you like a material to read or resources to look at them and treat it like it's homework kind of. And then reach out back to them and going, hey, I got some questions on the resources you gave me. And you'll be surprised how they respond. They go, oh, wow, you actually read the book I told you to read, or you actually listened to that podcast, a couple episodes of that podcast, and begin that conversation, that discussion. And then also don't be afraid to ask them, hey, do you mind if I take a look at some of the deals you analyzed, or walk me through your analysis, or through your mindset or your perspective on some deals as well. I think that's so important as you're reaching out. Start local. As I was telling Chris before we started the interview, there is a gentleman, his name is Greg. He's in the local area here in Virginia, in Charlottesville, Virginia, and he has a YouTube, and I've emailed him a couple of times, and we've had that discussion. And he's given out a lot of great materials for me in education. And then on the flip side of that, right, I always say, hey, go the free route first, right? So go the free route first. Don't spend any money yet. And as you're building it up, you're going to see some folks who offer you a lot of programs. Always be mindful of that, right? With education programs, because they cost money. Right. I would say don't pay yet until you know what you want to do and you really want to do this, right? And you're making you're headed in the right direction, making that progress. Always just start with the folks around you, and you'll be surprised how much you can learn. Obviously, people will go to YouTube, but I think having someone who you can trust first and talking to them first is always the best route. Real estate agent, right? I'm sure everybody knows a real estate agent, right? Talk to them about investing. Hey, what's the investing landscape looking like in the local community right now? And have that conversation. And when you do, you're going to be surprised the outcome of that.
Right. Amen. And that plays into nicely to a great conversation to have. It's the talk of the year, I guess, is the real estate market and the investing landscape. And as somebody who's in the industry analyzing deals, I'd love to pick your brain a bit about how you've traversed the real estate market currently. Any tips you might have, and what are some of the struggles that you're dealing with, as well as some of the successes that you might have had?
Well, obviously the first obstacle I'd say is high interest rates, right? As they're spiking. And this is a response to inflation, right? Obviously, we're all feeling inflation right now, but the biggest impact that's having on the real estate market is those interest rates. And as you see those interest rates spike, a lot of folks are wondering, should I sell? Should I buy? I think always, once again, location, right?
Yep.
But you want to be localized in your market and see what's moving around and fluctuating. The best thing to do is I'll talk to 3 or 4 different people from the real estate agencies, different brokerages, 3 or 4 different brokerages, and just ask their opinion on it. Of, hey, are you looking at there's a buyer's market and obviously a seller's market, and just ask them those questions. Hey, does it look like a buyer's market or seller's market? Is it shifting currently? Ask 3 or 4 different agents that, ask you, oh, are you in the market? And you can tell them, hey, I'm looking to invest or whatnot. And they'll give you that perspective right up, right? Straight up in front. And then also what I like to do is go to LinkedIn and just see what people are posting. Real estate investors. No, because you'll get it from all perspectives, right? The optimist, the realist, the pessimist, who are going, oh, the housing bubble is gonna burst. From what I've seen, given my limited research, I'd say, and I'm no accountant or CPA lawyer, but right now we're looking at the housing bubble. It might, one's house and value might decrease slightly, but not to the point of 2008, 2009. Right? People are worried about that because that's what's in most recent memory. From all the experts I listen to, right, quote unquote, it seems like everything's going to stabilize, right? And that people might feel the pressure to sell because they see a dip in their value, but I think it'll come back up, right? Because this high interest rate environment is going to last for a while. This inflation is something unseen that we haven't experienced at my age, and my parents experienced it slightly, but then the grandparents obviously experienced that towards the end of their working careers. And so moving forward, just be mindful of that. This is a great time to talk to your parents and see what they did, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they have all the answers, but it's just good to see, get their perspective and say, like, how did you navigate a high inflation market? And then also, right now, there's such a demand for construction now, and that's another impact. People are building everywhere, and they're trying to build fast. But labor is expensive. Lumber went down a little bit, so lumber is a little expensive, but it's still expensive, right? It went down in price a little bit, but it's still expensive. And so as they're building these houses, what they're trying to do is match pretty much the injection of tenants into the apartment market space, because folks see these high interest rates and they're like, I can't afford this.
Right.
Can't afford to buy a house. So what are you gonna do? You gotta find a place to live, right? You can be my buddy living down in a van down by the river if you want. Seen that happen.
Oh man,
that's the throwback. That's reference if people don't get that. But it most people have families and go, I want a roof over my head. I want to be living in a comfortable space, so they rent, right? An apartment, multifamily, right? We see those hikes in rent, little by little.
Yeah.
And that's just part of people's investment plan, right? Whenever you see those spikes, it's because the investor goes, okay, this is part of my plan. So those who are renting, just be prepared for rental spikes, right. Even in this high inflation market. And so just be mindful of that moving forward. Is that's just going to be a part of the plan. I think the biggest thing people can do now is really just save, right? But save to invest. Don't save just to save.
Right.
Save to invest. And that's how I see it, because when everything's over and done with, people are going to go, all right, what's out there to buy, right? When interest rates come back down.
Yeah, that's good, man. There's a lot that you touched on, and Brian, I can tell your grip on the market is strong. The way that you talk about prices and demand and supply and everything, I can tell you're having the right conversations and doing the right research. So that's admirable. But one thing that stuck out to me is at the end there, saving to invest and not saving to save. I think that's and I think more people are coming to terms with this, but something that was told, you got to save 10% of your income, or you just got to save and store up and don't spend everything. But like, if you're only saving, like, nobody saved their way to wealth, right? That's a thing that is becoming more common, is that nobody's ever saved their way to wealth. And you have to have a goal in mind. Otherwise there won't be enough ever. And you're being inefficient with your money. So that's something that I think the listener would be wise to take note of, is saving to invest. The other thing is renting and buying. And this is a big topic in the real estate world, and just in America in general, because for the longest time, it was always buy a house, build up equity, live in one house for your entire life, and either sell it or pass it down to your inheritance. And now it's like, okay, you need to buy to invest. And the only way to get wealthy is buying real estate. And honestly, I fall prey to this, given my niche of the real estate market. But I often recommend is, like, if there's nothing worse than buying the wrong asset. And like, you can rush to buy a piece of real estate, but if it's not making you money and you're not cash flowing positive, then it's not worth the investment. And right now, with the market where it's at, like, it might make more sense for you to save, keep money aside, look to alternative investments like life insurance or index funds or whatever it is. Like start doing research on other things, because real estate's not the only answer. But and your take, BK, what do you ever have these conversations about whether it makes more sense to rent or buy? And how do you go about it in your personal life, in discerning which one makes the most sense?
That's a great question. And I want to go back to what you touched on, Chris, with life insurance and infinite banking. That is an option to build wealth as well.
Yeah.
I know plenty of people who use their life insurance plan to build up that capital in order to invest in real estate. And I think that's just a great route to go about. Back to your original question there with real estate, whether to buy or rent. That is a difficult play. But I always tell folks, hey, always put your head in the game early on, right? What's the best time to invest in real estate? I always say now.
Yeah.
Now the time.
Right.
Even though with the interest rate spiking, people are like, oh, how can one afford it? I'm saying no, budget for that when you can. It's going to take time, right? Yeah. When people hear that, they go, oh, I should take all my money now and put it in real estate. First off, always analyze your deals.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure it makes sense. And there's no acts of desperation in real estate. Going in head first is sometimes more dangerous than just sitting back and watching.
Yeah.
I always say, I'm like, hey, definitely definitely go out there, analyze the market, but don't just start putting your money in there. I think ownership is a great way. Something I tell, my troops are, hey, you should all get together, right? Bring all your funds together and buy like a duplex or a triplex or something, if you can, wherever. Buy that, manage it, rent out the units, and you'll be surprised how much equity you're building.
Right.
In the meantime, if I could go back, that's what I would do. If I was early in my years, fresh out of college, I would go and say, okay, which me and my friends, can we go out and buy a duplex, gather our funds together, right? And maybe one of you lives in the other unit, right? For an FHA, right? Because I know that's how it works in FHAs. They go, hey, you have to live in one of the units for duplex or triplexes. I would definitely pursue that, because I think that's such a great route. Obviously, you need the funds. Obviously, you need the income. Obviously, you need a job. So that takes time to build up to that. But always have that in the back of your mind. That's where it goes back to save to invest, right? As you're saving, don't be afraid to just ask your local agents, hey, can you put me on the MLS and sign me up for triplexes or quadplexes or duplexes that hit the market? Can you put me in contact with a lender that's FHA approved, right? Even though you might not be buying for another year or so, right? It is so important to have those conversations early on, because as you're surrounded by those conversations, and then you start getting plugged into the local networks, like I said, you're going to learn by absorption naturally, right? And you know how the social media algorithms work. If you start clicking on one thing over and over, it'll start popping it up to you over and over. So my YouTube is like real estate, finances, economics, right? From all different perspectives. And so when one does that, you'll see your tithings grow and your cup overflow with, man. Because when you see that, amen, man. Because when you see that, when you start feeling that wealth of knowledge, right, that's a good feeling, because you're like, oh, I know what they're talking about. I understand this conversation. I can sit at this table and feel comfortable to have this conversation. And when you build that confidence and you're saving up your money while building up that confidence, when it's time to strike, it's gonna be a great momentous occasion for you.
Yeah, that's good, man. And I think that's a key that entrepreneurs in general have to remember, is the art of patience. And we always say that action brings clarity, and without action you won't get anywhere. But also, like, one of the fruits of the spirit is patience, and being able to exert that patience and say, okay, like, yes, I want to buy real estate. Yes, I want to grow a business. Yes, I want to grow and influence and impact. But like, you got to take one step after the other and start, and the smaller steps start to take you to those bigger steps. And if you're rushing into it, and this is speaking from personal experience, man, I've definitely lacked patience in areas of my life at certain times of my life, and you learn from it too. And so for the listener out there that might just be getting started in their entrepreneurial journey, their investing journey, like, yes, take action, but also make sure that you pair that action with patience, because the wrong decision at the wrong time is still worse than the right decision at the wrong time. Meaning, like, if you have the money to buy real estate now, even though the market might not be as prosperous or promising as it was 4 years ago, it beats it when you don't have the money, but you still buy the real estate and things turn wrong. So I guess that I'll get off my soapbox there, but that's just something that I've learned recently is the need for patience, and how that can benefit us for the long haul. Brian, I think that transitions nicely, or as best as I can, to the talk on faith, man. I know that it's near and dear to your heart. You mentioned your Christian upbringing. I'd love to hear how it plays an impact in your ability to serve in the marketplace, and how it's led you to where you are, maybe even in the service, maybe just as a real estate investor, broker, or just a wealth builder in general.
Yeah, man. That's funny how you bring that up, because I've been going through the book of Matthew and then the book of Paul as well, right? And those two gentlemen, serve the Roman Empire, right, during that time. But
Yep.
Jesus utilized them to serve now the Christian faith, and I take that to heart,
Wow.
because it's something that a lot of folks get or forget. I'm sorry, a lot of folks forget is I'm like, no, these are educated men, right, right, and Jesus used them in order to spread the word, and I think staying in the word, I think it lines up perfectly with how business plans and economics work out, right? And I think it's such an important look at it. When and this is how I see investing, right? Is when Jesus said, "Hey, who comes first will be served last, and whoever comes last will be served first." What he's saying is, hey, there's no best time. The time is just continue to grow to get to that point, right? Of if you want to invest, well, then you can invest. Yeah. And guess what? Doesn't matter if you're you started way before or way after somebody, right? Because I know how it is when you see people post on social media about, hey, we just acquired this and we got 200 units under our belt. We got 1,000. This brings our total 1,000 units. And I just got another duplex. No, because you can start right at square one and you'll still be sometimes even more successful than that person over there. But it's not about comparing oneself to another. It's, hey, what's your growth? Where are you at? Right. Obviously, it's great to see those folks. I congratulate them. Hey, you're doing great, 1,000 units. But also it means, okay, I'm surrounded by the right people. Right. If you're starting to see those Facebook posts or those LinkedIn posts, that means you're surrounded by the right people. Right. No, that's how I see it. And just because they're way ahead of the game doesn't mean, oh, I can't start then. No. You come in last, you can still be served first, right? Yeah. And I think that's such an important aspect to build wealth and to pass that on to your family and to your children. I think it's a legacy that can be used for good. I know a gentleman, he's on LinkedIn, special ops, and he's using his funds and his profits, some of it, to help out war veterans with their programs and build up their facilities as well for treatment for PTSD. Wow. And I thought that was incredible. I was like, see, right there, right? People have sometimes a concept of, the Lord doesn't like rich people. And I'm like, no. I know a lot of folks who use their profit and they don't put it on Facebook, but they use their profit for some incredible things, from charities, organizations, to really just community cookouts, right? In the local community, all under the blessing of the Lord. Amen. As I see it, because those are tidings that can reap rewards, right? When you give out, you'll be surprised what you take back in, right? In this business, it's from what I'm seeing from my coaches, they say, hey, give 80 to 90%, right? And you're like, why you do that? It's like, because what you get back, it's going to be tenfold that. It may take time. It may take a while to get that back, right? Just like Jesus gave all, right? We can only give so much, obviously, because we're human. You give as much as you can. And when you do, you'll be surprised what you get back. Even if you don't have much, right? If you're like, oh man, I don't know much about real estate. Who am I to help? Who am I to just being there to show up for support, right? Just being there, you'll be surprised. Wow. And I think that's something that a lot of folks tend to forget. Share that value when you can. Even if you're just starting out, square one. I just learned about tax abatements. I don't know what that means. Yeah. And then look it up, make a post about it, put it on social media, start that conversation, put it out there, and you'll be surprised the people who come back to you and they go, hey, I saw that post, or hey, let's talk more about that. That's how you end up talking to somebody like Chris, having these conversations of how do you build yourself up? And it's having that servant leadership, just like Jesus had that servant leadership, just like Moses. Having that servant leadership mindset will take you a lot farther than you think.
Amen. And when you're talking there, I'm thinking about Solomon and how he's the wealthiest man that we know of. I mean, people often say that he'd put Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk to shame with the amount of wealth that he had in that time. And he wasn't perfect by any means, but he was the wisest man to ever live. And one thing that he is known for is seeking wisdom over wealth. And when you're talking BK and seeking out the relationships and the people that are where you want to be and surrounding yourself with that people and getting the wisdom that they have generated is a blessing, and it can only benefit you as long as you use it, right? There was a time in my life where I was just collecting information, reading all the books, but wasn't really doing much with it. And I can often feel like that is a time where you feel the most unfulfilled, as opposed to using that information for good. And that's when you feel the most fulfilled. I also like your comment on comparison. And man, that's this day and age, man, it's hard not to compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's a saying out there, and I don't even know if it comes from the Bible, but it probably should, is comparison is the thief of joy. And like, it's like, if you are meant to live your one life, then what good is it comparing yourself to someone else? You don't see Paul comparing himself to, I don't know, Peter or Matthew. I mean, at the end of the day, we want to compare ourselves to Jesus above all else, and we're trying to be as much like him as possible. So I think that's the only good comparison we can possibly get, but comparison to other humans doesn't really get us very far, because we're all walking different journeys. But if we're doing good in the name of the Lord, then we're all fighting the same battle.
Amen, man. Amen to that. I appreciate that. Love it.
Come on. Well, my brother, I don't have too much else. I'm grateful for your time, and man, this is a fruitful conversation. I guess I would extend any last minute thoughts to you. First and foremost, allow people to get in contact with you if they're looking for sales. I know you serve Virginia, Florida, and Texas, I believe.
That's right.
How can people reach out to you? And then obviously the life insurance as well. Go ahead and give yourself a little shameless plug for.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a website. Just got set up probably like last week, but
yeah,
the website is bklwealth.com. Again, that's bklwealth.com. Can reach out to me also on social media. I'm on LinkedIn, Brian Kevin Lagrange. I accept pretty much all requests. Facebook as well, Brian Kevin Lagrange. You can reach out to me through there. And let's have this conversation. You know, I'm not charging people by the hour. I'm here to serve others and help them out as much as I can, right? And give them the information and give them sort of action steps to take to move forward. I think this is such a great opportunity right now. Yeah. I know the economy looks very pessimistic moving forward, as we've seen the inversion of the Treasury rate a couple times already this year. I get it. You know, it feels like it's no hope, but I promise you, there's so much hope right now.
Amen. Come on.
And it's coming.
Yeah.
And you got to stay positive and keep having those conversations, even though you don't feel like having them, even though you're like, well, why should I try? Keep building that wisdom, because when the opportunity presents itself, you'll be ready. That's all I got.
That's so good, brother. And I do have one final question that we ask every guest, but I want to piggyback on your comment there, as I do think that there is an awakening happening in the marketplace, and people are starting to see, okay, inflation, gas prices, just like recession, and like there's a lot we can't control, but at the same time, there is a lot that you can control. And that's why I think getting in touch with people like BK, like myself and the many others out there that are looking to help you on your business journey, are looking to build your business, your wealth, whatever it is, like there are solutions. You just have to be in the right conversations, in the right circles, and have the right attitude, and good things will come. Brian Kevin Lagrange, my man, the last final question that we have here on the Know Your Numbers show to all of our guests is, what is one truth about money that most people regard as myth?
One truth about money that people, man, this is a good question. I think one truth about money people regard, it's all subjective. It's all speculation, right? Wow. I think people try to put a dollar value to a lot of things. But I can tell you one thing: money can't buy everything.
Wow.
And I know that for sure. Trust me.
Amen.
Money can't buy everything. And when you find out the things that it can't buy, I think that's when you've reached a lot of wisdom at that point. I didn't understand what my grandparents said when they said that. I was like, what are you talking about? I just want this video game. I want this. I want that. And as you grow older, you start to realize, man, money can buy a lot of things. But it can't buy back time. And your spirit, your soul.
Right.
A whole different conversation. So keep that strong, keep that close to your heart, and you'll be headed right in the right direction, because money's material. It's important, but it's material.
Yep. Yeah, so good, brother. So good. That there's no better way to close that. I love the answer. And Brian, I just appreciate everything about you. I look forward to running this race with you and keeping up on all the things that you do, my man. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being you. And we will catch you on the flip side.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.